Hey, McDowell here. Today we are reviewing the 6-inch, the 7-inch Fortnite, the Scientist Legendary Series Brawler. Man, that is a mouthful. Alright, let's take a look at the front. I picked this up at Target for $29.99. The packaging for these brawlers are a little bit different than the other Legendary Series packaging. If you notice, it has a darker color instead of a light color, and the packaging is actually much larger. Now to the back side. Up near the top is the quote, "His mission is unknown, one of the 7. Down near the bottom is the cross sale, and over here on the right is info on the action weapons. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe so you will be notified of future videos. And if you want to help the channel out and you play Fortnite, please feel free to add my creator code to your account. It's McDowell. Alright, let's get this figure open. The Scientist is a legendary skin, and he's part of the 7 set. To have gotten this skin in-game, you needed to complete the Meteoric Rise challenges in Season 10. Fortunately, he is no longer available. He comes with the Stealth Angular Axe harvesting tool. This is not part of his set, but instead is part of the Counterattack set. It's kind of a neat looking thing. It's pretty basic. It's just made up of metally stuff with a little worn off symbol and some red ends. Looks like maybe a road sign of sorts. But yeah, pretty neat. He comes with 4 replaceable faces, these 3, and the one that's on him at the moment. It's almost more faces than I can hold at any one time, but we'll take a look at those right now. Here's the face that he was packaged with. Now let's get this off and we'll switch over to number 2. And we'll knock him over. There's face number 2. Almost looks like a clown if you ask me. And face number 3. These are kind of difficult to hold on to. And face number 4. There we go. Now let's take a look at the weapons. He comes with 2 weapons that we've seen before. Well, kind of. These weapons were part of the Legendary Loadout packages of weapons that mostly saw a release in the UK. I'm guessing to get a wider release, they're going to be putting some of these action-oriented weapons in with maybe just the brawlers, because I know Meowscles comes with an action crossbow. So let's take a look. What do these weapons actually do? Well, we got the light machine gun on the left and the guided missile on the right. You can pull this piece off of the light machine gun so very easily. It kind of pops in there, and it's try to keep this in focus here from this angle, and that's its action feature, is it just pops off and pops it back on. Well, a guided missile, I'm figuring you can guess what this does. There's a little button right here, boom, and there it goes. It shoots a missile. So let's do a missile test here real quick and see how powerful that spring action is. Here we have the guided missile, probably about 8 inches from the figure. Didn't do a whole lot. Here we have the guided missile, probably about 3 inches from the figure. And that's about it. The Scientist is a bit of a big, bulky, heavy figure, so I thought I'd bring out one of the lighter weight legendary figures and see how this does. About 5 or 6 inches away. Well, we have a little bit of a sway there. How about if it's point blank range? No. So the action feature on this missile launcher I really like. I think it's a really cool feature. Anytime you can integrate play into your figures is really awesome. I loved the missile launchers when G.I. Joe had them. Unfortunately, the spring in here is not strong enough to actually knock one of these 6-inch or 7-inch figures over. I'm sure this will knock a 4-inch figure over quite easily. And that could be due to rules of how strong the spring is to pass the inspection to make sure that kids don't, shoot their eye out or injure themselves with these things. I've come across some launchers that are really powerful. And so it's probably some sort of a rule that they can't have it as powerful. I still like the play feature. I think it's really awesome. Now it's the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's take a look at the figure itself. And to begin with, I'm going to do some quick comparisons. This is a tall 7-inch or so figure. So standing next to, say, Master Chief, if we can get him standing there, is about that size difference. This is a bigger figure, I think. He's supposed to be 6.5 or 7 inches. We'll put Duke next to the Scientist. He's supposed to be about 6 inches. Actually, we're going to straighten his leg up there a little bit. Okay, he's a leaning 6 inches. And we'll put Abstract over here, who's also about 6 inches. So you can kind of see where that range is for the Scientist. You know, I'm wondering if this Master Chief is more 7 inches and this is more about 6.5 and that's 6. So there's a comparison of height for these types of figures. Now, let's take a look at his articulation. So this is a pretty big, bulky figure. This is about the range of figure. I don't want to get a figure that's much bigger than this to actually play with or use. 12 inches are nice, but I don't know. 7, 8 inches, they kind of get into a really kind of a weird spot for me. So he's got 36 points of articulation according to the box, and I found a few of the missing ones right off. His head will rotate. He fell over. His head rotates about that far. He can't rotate it all the way around. It gets a little bit tight. He can look down, and he can kind of look up. That's about his range right there. He's got these shoulder pieces that I think will be fragile, could eventually break off sometime with too much wear and tear. They're kind of just, I don't know if I can show them to you. They just kind of have a, I'll sacrifice mine. There's a little bit of a tag into the shoulder there. He's got these butterfly joints that this one, the right one moves, but the left one doesn't seem to. Or mine's kind of stuck back. Oh, there we go. I broke it. I didn't break it, but I freed it, so the butterfly joint works. His shoulders, bear with me, it might go in and out of focus, but his arms go about that high. He has no bicep rotation. No bicep rotation. He's got a single pin for the elbows, not double pin. And he has a wrist I should use this one over here. His wrist will rotate and has a hinge back and forth. His fingers also have a hinge, and there's a bit of a tightness to him. You can shut his fingers about that far, but when you go push it any further, it kind of clicks and locks. I'm wondering if they've designed a new little click element so he can hold the weapons better. He's got a decent torso wiggle, and his waist will rotate quite nicely. He does the splits amazingly well. Because, I don't know, he needs to. His thigh rotation, his thigh cut is much lower. It's right above the knee than it is on other figures. So what's really cool is the armor on his legs is really not hindered much by that rotation. The armor's down just a little bit. He's got the double pins at the knee, and I think once you get him bending, he actually bends them quite well. There's no calf rotation, nothing there. And then we get down to his feet. That's a little tricky. There's not a lot of range of motion. He's got a chunk of metal here, well, chunk of plastic there, and a cylinder coming out from the back of his foot. And so his range is about this. So that also means with these pieces coming down the sides, he really doesn't have a rotation at the ankle either. Finally, the last thing is the toe. There is a toe hinge right there. I'm not sure what good that's going to do when you hinge the toe up. There's still like this piece sticking down. So it's not like it's going to do much good to... You can't really put him on that. Let's see if I can bend him up a little bit. I guess you could. I guess you could do that, and maybe actually will help stabilize him a little bit. That's actually something... Okay, that's kind of cool. That's interesting. But he is a big and bulky figure. He's going to take up some shelf space for you. He's very neat, though. The color on him makes me think of Ruin. Just the coloring and the way that he's made. He's got some really cool orange and red lines, highlights all over him. There's all these red lines all over and some orange pieces. He's a very nicely made figure, I think. I think he's well worth getting, whether it's for play or display. Play or display, I rhymed. But yeah, I think he's a really good figure. I think he would make a great addition. I think they've upped their, even though there's less articulation, and we'll have to see with Meowscles when he comes out if some of these things that aren't there are gonna be something new for these figures, or if this is just a scientist thing. But I like the figure. Now let's see how he looks geared up. Here he is holding the light machine gun and his harvesting tool, and he holds them very, very well. As I mentioned earlier, there's that little bit of a click motion in the fingers now. We'll see if that's just a scientist feature or if that's going to be carried on to other Legendary Series figures going forward. But if that's the case, it could be that we have seen the end of difficult accessory holding from these figures. Because at first, when I put the light machine gun in, it kind of sat there and wanted to wiggle out. When I was able to squeeze the fingers together, it took about a half a second to give him that one little bit of a squeeze. He holds this really, really well. I can actually move his hand around, move his arm around, and it doesn't fall out. It's really cool. Same with the harvesting tool. Once I got it down to a certain point, and then I squeezed his fingers there, he holds this really well. Some figures in the past have had a problem when you have the arm down like this kind of loosens up, but that's not really loose. This is really awesome. He holds this stuff really, really good. Let's take a look at the guided missile. We've got the same thing going on with the guided missile. When you crank his hand down just that one little bit, he holds on to it really well. I sure hope this is not like a one and done thing with Jazwares with that little hand crank, that last little bit. This would make an awesome addition. This would completely change their Legendary Series figures from here on out, because most of them in the past have had just a little bit of looseness, and then once that looseness happens, they can't hold anything. It's been the biggest problem I've had with these 6-inch, just 6-inch figures. So this would just be a game changer if there is some sort of a catch in there. Unfortunately, with this figure, he's big and he's bulky enough. You can't ever have him use like one hand to hold the gun. Like, he can't hold the gun this way, very proper. It's going to look weird. I wasn't planning on doing this, but he's just so bulky you can't really do this properly. Anyway, so you're gonna have this guy, and maybe that's why they put the crank or the little piece on him that holds in the fingers. With this guy, he's gonna pretty much just be holding a weapon in each hand, or a weapon in one hand, or however you want to do it. He's a great figure. I really like him and I recommend him. You know, he is $10 more than most of them, but I think that has to do with these weapons. I think the weapons are what bump it up. That, and he's a bigger, taller figure, because certainly he doesn't have any more accessories. He actually has less accessories than the other Legendary Series figures. There's 3 more faces there. But yeah, that's the scientist. So I want to thank you for stopping by and watching. Check out the 2021 Fortnite Toys video in the lower left-hand corner to be informed of what's to come. And don't forget to leave a comment about what you think of this new line of Brawlers Legendary Series action figures. I will see you in the next video.